12:30.
I know. There's a lot of people on time.
Yes.
Yeah. Yay.
Hey,
Mark.
look at all these
Alex.
people.
Woohoo.
Hello.
All right, I'm switching to
hello.
gallery view.
Yeah, definitely.
I love gallery view.
Yeah. Let's go gallery. This is
Hey,
beautiful.
everyone.
Hello.
Yay.
Morning.
Hey, everyone.
Morning,
Hi.
y'all.
everyone.
Hello.
Hey, Kate.
Hi.
Hello from the sunny south.
Hello.
Hey. Hey, it's warm in Texas again. Is that a true statement?
Getting there. Warmer than earlier this week.
All right. Look at all these people, man. Let's go crazy.
I think that you're well past that point, right?
That's the crazy point.
Like it's warmer. Oh, we'll go crazy.
I'm excited. I'm excited for RB4. I'm excited people once they get the Zedastin down. It's like the world opens up. No book is out of grasp. It's gonna held by John Macy. I'm record on the other one. Okay, my computer. Yeah, I have computer over here. Record and one I'm actually doing like the chat with. Audio is up. That's probably. I'm gonna do it. It's been.
It's just a little strange, Bo, because you're normally so good, and now you sound kind of like Cookie Monster. Cookie.
He's back.
Way better.
Oh, that's much better. Cookies? Cookies? Did someone say cookies?
Snorkeling.
Matt McKinley, do you have these sound effects, dude?
I didn't plug them in, but I'm gonna do that in the.
Yeah, we need a soundtrack. We
I
need
mean, come on, Tony
something to build the
Robbins.
mood.
I know,
We're
that's
gonna
right.
start doing workouts before our sessions.
You need oxygen in the brain.
Yeah,
I did
we need to pump the blood.
a workout today. Yes, I did.
Okay, people still streaming in, but let's maybe get going. We're a few minutes past 7 a.m. for me, but 12:30 for everyone else, or at least the PST. Welcome. Hope you had a great week. Hope you're making progress with the book and enjoying book club. We're kind of reaching the valley of the committed now, right? It's like the midway mark where it's really the kind of initial glow's worn off and we haven't quite seen the destination that we're going to end up to. So we're in the desert somewhere, trying to make sense, very much being led by Bo and Matt through the abyss. And so this week, just kind of want to quickly reflect with Matt and Bo as we make it through the midway point, and then break out into both your rooms to let you get back to work and get on with the progress that you've been making. So Matt, maybe I'll start with you. Matt, how's it been going, and where are you guys at? Give us a bit of an overview.
Yeah, I kind of feel like our group that is reading the Dan Coyle book we're kind of reaching a turning point because we've now read 2/3 of the book. And I think that what I'm anticipating is that we're really going to be able to settle into a discussion of the deep themes of the book now from here on out. And the other piece that I'm seeing is that it feels to me like our book club graph, the foundations have been laid. And to me, that's really exciting because I can relax a little bit now and actually do more writing because that's the part that I love. I want to be in the graph and reading the things that people are writing and responding to it, and not thinking about the little organizational details. But I'm excited. I think we're where we need to be, and I think there's going to be even more cool stuff happening in the next few weeks as we all kind of settle into the graph and our routines.
And so, I assume we're you're going to get to a point where you really understand the themes of the book incredibly well. That's perhaps one thing I love about book club is you learn the book in a way that you generally don't do if you're just passively reading. Have you learned anything about community yet? are you at a stage yet to perhaps, things that resonate or ring out about a community?
Yeah. I'm laughing because
I'm glad he asked you that before he asked me.
this kind of puts me on the spot.
I'll give you the easy ones.
Matt,
Give me the easy questions, dude.
yeah, it's what I'm learning is just how rich and challenging it is to put it into practice. I kind of feel like there's layers to my understanding of how human beings work together, and having read the book once and then having read it again in the company of all these other people, I can see layers under the layers that I didn't see before. And right now I'm just really thinking about the word belonging, and I'm trying to figure out what that means. This is one of the things that it clicked for me, both because of the experience of sort of talking through all the issues with everybody else in the group, but also just in terms of sort of my own engagement with it, that's what I've been trying to figure out all along. I've been trying to figure out what belonging means. And I don't have the answers yet. I need my group to help me out, because it's out of the discussion that we're all having that I think I'm finding that gradually getting a slightly more fine-tuned understanding of the themes of the book itself.
It's like the safety component,
The safety bit?
Yeah. Matt, did you cut out?
Oh, I'm here. I'm just listening.
I was just saying that I feel like that's a huge theme that keeps emerging like through every chapter, is that people have to feel safe.
Yeah.
And consistently
just give you a little nugget.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I mean, and there's this crazy activity that we're all involved in this from all around the world, and we're sort of coming together in this forum with some shared passion for learning and knowledge and reading and writing, and we're trying to recreate all these things that Coyle writes about from all his real life examples from pre-pandemic, and yet it's just fascinating to me how it plays out in our setting and in our group.
And particularly I guess one thing to consider is safety in writing too, not necessarily just talking if you're working in the graph. So that's perhaps something unique about book club, and perhaps actually a good segue to Bo. That's probably one of the good reasons why he was very keen to get it closed to the public. So people couldn't necessarily see what people were writing. That was very important to you, Bo, right? Like the idea of people being quite vulnerable with what they were writing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think when you start writing it in Rome, it just starts flowing. You said you wanted this to be like a conversation, right? Well, to me, if I'm going to do it like a conversation, I just want to talk, and for me, it was, so when Matt Brockwell sent over that video, right? It was like, that's it though. It's just how everyone learns and how everyone takes in stuff. It's amazing. But even just like all our chats that aren't in public are, it's all about that. It's all about, how can we make this better? How can we, bring even more this or that to it, and yeah.
I mean, I'm very much of the mindset of, it's frontier work, trying to discover things at the same time as deliver them. So you've got to go easy on yourself at the same time as kind of forging a path. And and
it was private. Matt Brockwell, just, we have like a little group chat on Slack, and it's just like the things that we are thinking about and we're seeing, and it's like how like when Matt's updating me with the Coyle graph even earlier, it was just like, yeah, it's fascinating because I almost feel like everyone that's getting done with the Sonke book is when they explore the books after that, it's just like, oh, it's so like lock in step with, oh, well, once you get this, then getting this is like essentially like, it's like a duh. It's like duh, And,
one thing, Bo, since you mentioned the connection with the Zongi book, one thing that I think is really interesting to me that's happening in the Coyle group is something that evolved out of Rome Book Club 2. Because one of our big questions in Rome Book Club 2, when we were all reading the Zonke Aaron's book, was, okay, so this describes this Zettelkasten process, but he's thinking about it for an individual. What does it even mean to try to do a Zettelkasten with a group where everyone's thoughts and impressions are so individual and personal? And I remember thinking at the time, no, there's no way. Like we can't really do a group Zettelkasten because there's too much in it that's me. Like in my Zettelkasten, it's my hopes, fears, and dreams and things that shape what I think is important. So how can we just put everyone together? And one of the biggest aha moments for me was probably about, I don't know, within the last week or two, when it started to occur to me, no, we're doing that. We are doing a group Zettelkasten. We are finding ways to take very, often personal things that people are writing about, their interests, their concerns, their enthusiasms, and we're finding ways to try to get those things to surface in the group that will catalyze further discussion. And to me, that's exciting. I mean, that's the holy grail. I didn't think this was going to be possible when we were doing Rome Book Club 2. And I'm starting to see the outlines of that emerge. I don't think we're quite there yet. We haven't completely systematized it perfectly, but we're closer to it than we have ever been. I find that really exciting.
You know what I love is that, like, when you explain things, it's like you take all the things that are going on in my brain and then you just like say it so eloquently, and it's always been like that. And so for me, it's like, this is why, even I was watching that little clip that you sent me and it was like, you said it was so good, and it's like, and it's just like, how do you do that, And,
Thank you, Bo.
And that's what I love about this too. It's like, even just as we were sort of, all the meetings that sort of led up to, even RBC 3 starting, it was like every time we jump on like this hour-long Zoom call between the three of us, it was like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? Like, those moments are everywhere, and it's just, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens after this. What's RBC 4 looking like? What's RBC 5 looking like? What is yeah.
It'll continue to emerge.
Just a quick note, guys. Bo mentioned a video, and a few people commented on it in the chat section. This week marked my debut as a recorder of instructional videos. I finally bit the bullet because I figured I have some catching up to do before I reach Bo's level. And so I recorded an introductory video. It's in our graph, and I'm happy to share it with anybody who'd like to watch it.
Excellent. Yeah, I think Mark put it in the chat as well. So. Or someone did. So you might be famous soon, Matt. Perhaps not, but off to the races anyway. Bo, quickly before we break out into the breakout rooms, where are you guys at in terms of progress and kind of the concepts of the book?
We are entering into the crystallization of thought, the permanent notes, the declarative statement that is the easiest part when you do steps 1 and 2, when you do the first 2 phases. And here's the craziest thing, man. It's just, I was reading through people's literature notes and their fleeting notes, and it's just, I was trying to like as many as I could. But it's when you get it. And they got it. The hardest part is realizing the power of Rome's ability just to capture all of your thoughts in one place in a frictionless writing environment, and then to be able to see how these ideas percolate, and then like, oh my goodness, and then it's like, oh, and then it informs it, and it's just like, I don't know, it's exciting just to be like, whoa, they're getting it. Oh, they got it. And yeah. I think I want to lead into what the agenda for the Sonke's group is going to be. It's the power of community, but it's also this gold mine of like wisdom. It's this gold mine that's untapped, and it's this idea of like, you have this synchronous sort of, every day there's a lesson, right? But there's also this asynchronous aspect of it as well, which is like people are catching up and people are falling behind. But it's beautiful because people that are staying up to date now have an opportunity to go, well, I kind of got it here, or I got it. Let me teach someone that's a couple days behind. And then it's like this exponential compound growth kind of thing where it's like the people that are current can go back 2 days and teach people that aren't there yet. But then when the people that get there at 2 days later can go back and teach people that are 4 days back. And it's just, there's something here. There's something here. And it's amazing to watch.
That sounds great. And it sounds as though for the most part, people are getting it. I know there's like a threshold, right? It takes a little bit of a orientation mentally to firstly make sense of the concepts and then, connect them together. So hang in there if you haven't got there. And I like the idea of the peer-to-peer environment. If I've got 2 kids and it's very clear sometimes they don't learn from me, they learn from each other. One step ahead is probably the best mode for education a lot of the time. So I really like that too, from a peer-to-peer perspective. Okay, great, Bo, thank you. And Matt, thanks as well. What's the plans for today? We're going to break out now, and how do we kind of organize that? Matt, you've got a separate Zoom?
Yeah, that's right. One of our co-hosts, Nico McDonald, has kindly offered a Zoom link that we're all going to go to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the chat right now. So if I could kindly ask for folks to hold off on chatting until we've completed the separation of the 2 groups. All the people in the COIL group who are reading the culture code, I'm going to invite them to hop to a link which is over there. It just says Nico McDonald is inviting you to a scheduled meeting, topic, Rome Book Club 3, Book Club 2, the Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. So if you're in the Culture Code group, kindly click on that Zoom link, and I will be joining you there in just a few seconds. And we're going to launch things from there for our group, where we're going to be spending some time today discussing chapters 1 through 12, which is how far we're at so far in the book. So it looks like people are already hopping over. I'm going to hop over there now, and group leaders in cohort, the COIL, just kindly keep the Slack channel open so that we can text each other to troubleshoot if there's any problems at all. But you will be seeing me over on the other Zoom link. So thanks, Bo, and thanks, Matt. I will be talking to you guys soon.
Thanks, Matt. Go well, and go well, everyone. Hope it goes well. Perfect. Bo, what's the plan for your group? They've got to jump into a breakout room, right?
Yes, so everyone in the Sonke group, let's go ahead and go into the auditorium, the main auditorium. And I guess Matt McKinley, you're gonna just man the sort of
lobby.
Yeah. But everyone, let's just, so there's 2 breakout rooms at the moment. One's gonna be Gold Mine, and the other one's just gonna be the auditorium. Just go to the auditorium for now, and I'll see y'all there.
Perfect.
So again, what you do is you click on the little 4 squares. Oh, everyone got it. Click on the 4 squares and hover over auditorium, click join, and it kind of moves around, but there you go.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Breathing.
Hey.
Bart.
That's me.
Oh, hello, everyone.
Hey.
Hey.
So I kind of want to just start with, I'll let people file in here. We have 55 people. I'm just going to go ahead and start. So I was in a 2-year conservatory in Los Angeles, right? It was a Sanford Meisner conservatory called Elizabeth Messing Acting Studio, right? And this was 8 years ago. And I was at the movie theater, and that was in LA, right? I'm currently in Atlanta, right? And I was at the movie theaters last night, and I bumped into a girl that was in the class after me. And we spent like 30 minutes, well, not 30 minutes, like 15 minutes catching up. We're actually both watching the same movie. And she was with her fiance or whatever, but it was just like, something hit me where it was like, this is a small world, you know? And it's like, you never know when you're gonna bump into somebody, and when you need, because she was going through the death of her grandmother, right? And I was like, dude, I lost my best friend like last month, you know, and my childhood best friend, and it was just like, I think the timing of it was incredible, and it's just, to me, it just resonated how I wouldn't be surprised if 6 months down the road or 2 years down the road, you bump into someone that you see in this Zoom call here, and you're like, hey, you were with Crazy Bo and his crazy daily writing exercises, you know? And it's just, I think that's really what I want to touch upon, is that, you know, I was reading back through people that have sort of gotten to that point where, you know, it's clicking and it's making sense. The fleeting notes are making sense. The literature notes are making sense. The power of Rome and the power of Zettelkasten is starting to click. Maybe not so much the structure and how things are supposed to look, because we haven't really dove into that yet, but that's just the mechanics. The mechanics are easy. It was really getting to that point where it was like, okay, how do I actually write in Rome? And I feel like a lot of people have gotten to that point. And I was just really thinking about, you know, the permanent notes is the crystallization of thought. And if you do the fleeting notes correctly, you do the literature notes correctly, the crystallization of pulling all that up is really simple, because all the work's already been done. And I know that some people are still catching up, and I know some people, I mean, it's closed now, by the way. I mean, everyone's being pushed over to a waiting list, but basically this is our group. And so everyone there's people that are catching up, there are people that are current, and there's some people that are just somewhere in between. And I was just really thinking about, like, well, how can we crystallize these last 21 days? I mean, this is the halfway marker. Just like crystallization of our thoughts in the permanent note, I figured the best way to crystallize what we've learned is by teaching. And so this is what I want to do. Right? If you look at the agenda here, it says power of community and then a breakout room for 10 minutes. So I have another breakout room called, if you click on it, it says Somke's Gold Mine, right? And what I want to do is I just want everyone that is current and that has a grasp on the fleeting notes and the literature notes, I'd like for them to jump over to that room. And we're gonna congregate over there. Just hang out over there. I'm going to explain the directions, I guess, for everyone now. But everyone that's sort of current and has understood fleeting notes and literature notes, we're going to head over to the gold mine room. And again, it's not a race. You know, if you don't feel comfortable, then hang out in this room here, the main auditorium. And for everyone else, if you go to your page and you hit the double semicolon for today's template, let me go and share my screen so everyone can see. Maybe that'll help. So let's just go over to your page, open that up. I'm going to delete this for now so everyone can see. And let me collapse everything. Everyone can see. I'm going to go ahead and create a new block right there. I'm going to hit double semicolon twice. I'm going to hit day 22. And then now, current time. And now you have 4 questions here. 1, 2, question about fleeting notes. Question about literature notes, question about Zettelkasten, and a question about Rome. So basically, if you're going to stay in this main auditorium room and you're still catching up, or maybe, you know, you're still a little bit hesitant, just go ahead and ask the questions here. Ask the question here, expand and get into detail, and really just really abstract out exactly what you're not seeing clearly yet. And then what I'd like for you to do is summarize all of this abstraction at the parent block level here with the actual specific question. Cool? I think everyone understands. And then again, you have 4 of them there. You can ask any question you want. A fleeting note, literature note, Zettelkasten question, or a Rome question. And I'll set a timer on the main page here for a 10-minute Pomodoro. Let's do here, Pomodoro. I'll make it 11 minutes because it gives me time to head over there. Uh-oh. Looks like someone already hit it. Let's do another one here.
Bo, just a clarification, if I may.
Yes.
You want everyone to do this?
I just want everyone that's not going to jump over to the other breakout room to do this.
Okay.
Who was asking, by the way? Rick?
Rick.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, well, we can talk. Where would you say I should go? I mean,
I was gonna ask as well, because I'm way behind, Bo, but I feel like I have a good grasp of it, but I have thoughts and questions, so I actually don't know.
Well, I mean, I would say,
but like
I would say,
I've talked about it, so you know.
Well, this is the fun and play aspect of all this, right? There's no rules, you know.
I mean,
but I would say this. If you're current, basically, if you're current up to today and you've done all the writing exercises, you're in the gold mine room.
Okay.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Right.
And, so again, I'm gonna go to start the timer. Everyone, go ahead and jump into that breakout room. If you're current and you've done all the writing exercises, go back into the breakout room and look for. Yes, Yina, you need to go to the breakout room. Scroll down to the bottom, and you'll see Sonke's gold mine, and I'll meet you there in a second.
So, and Bo, in the gold mine, what do we get if we go in there? Because
Are you current?
I think so. I've literally finished just now.
Let me.
Oh.
Then jump
Oh,
over
the teacher's looking at me. Oh my god! Oh my god! I'm not lying.
Where's your page? If you have any doubts, just jump into the gold mine room. And then everyone else, I'm gonna go and start the timer now. 11 minutes starting now, and I'll see you again. Just go into your page, ask any questions, get as specific as you can, you know, and make it hard. Make them hard. I really want these questions to be very difficult. And I'm just gonna take a look. I should have wrote down all the people that were supposed to go over there. I think some of you could actually go over to the gold mine room, but I'm not gonna say anything. I'll be back in 10 minutes. No, really what I want to do is I just want to hype everyone up here because I'm blown away by how far everyone has come and how quickly they've grasped like essentially the most difficult part, which is actually the writing, in Rome and figuring it out. And Alan, Peter, Samantha, Heather, you know, I mean, all of you. I could just keep going down the list. You know, Enrique, it's like all of you. I mean, I read Carol, you know, I read them all. And it's just, I think it's imperative to, once you've gotten to that point where you're like, yeah, I got it, to go, to make the best use of that enthusiasm and best use of that progress by giving it away. And this is why I wanted to sort of take this time as people start filling out these questions. I before I left, I told them, I was like, make these hard, you know, make these questions very difficult. And I think the reason is because if I pulled any one of you here, you could answer it. You really could. And it's I think giving everyone that opportunity to do that really, I look at it like this. We're crossing the halfway mark, and I can't, like, I want to give you all the best that I've got, you know, and I can't keep going back and sort of rallying them up past that the halfway marker. Because once you do literature notes, then it's like, how easy was it for everyone just to go, I could probably just end up doing permanent note now. Like, you had enough information. Like, some of you actually did. Some of you actually were just like, I can make a permanent note. Like, Bart, you're shaking your head. You know what I mean? It's like, I know what a permanent note is. It's just everything that I've already done. And so it's like, I looked at it like, if you all can take care of the people that are a couple of days behind, then I can focus on laying out all the technical mechanics with what's coming ahead. And it's like killing two birds with one stone. It's like, you all have an opportunity to give back to the people that are a couple of days behind, and then it fosters this sort of cyclical thing. I'm shooting for the moon here. You know, maybe we're not ready for that yet. But I looked at it like, I was reading through everyone's answers, and I saw that you clicked. And so, well, let me just open it up to everyone now. It's do you feel that click? How would you describe that click? Do you feel like, you know, like if I asked you right now to go back to yesterday's exercise and go, okay, I want you to make that into a crystallized thought, would that be difficult for you?
Well, this is Rick. I'll tell you what my hesitation was initially about coming, you know, because I have been keeping up with the work. What I'm doing is working for me, you know, but would I want to teach what I'm doing to someone else and say, this is how you do it? Not necessarily, because I think, like, going back to that point I mentioned that I got off of zettelkasten.de, where whoever it was talks about the idea of notes being malleable regardless of what level they're at, right? And there's combined with that is the idea of versions and revisions, right? So I've gone back probably 3-4 times and revised my fleeting notes. They're not fleeting. They're just as permanent as a permanent note. I mean, in the sense of wanting to keep them and refine them and make the most use out of them. And I think the idea of, you know, too many people might have the notion, and maybe it's the right notion, I don't know, that, you know, you start with fleeting notes, then you upgrade, right? You take it a level higher to a literature note. Well, I don't know that that's the case. I mean, I don't know. That's where my hesitation lies in, like I say, it's working for me. Should I teach that to somebody? Probably not. I don't know.
Maybe the word teaching isn't the right word. Maybe it's your experience. Because I almost look at it like, if you have, like, how many people are in this room right now? We have 34 people in this room, and we'll probably have another 30 in the other room, right? With 34 people's experiences, you're not telling them what to do. Like, have I told you to do anything? I don't think I've told you to do anything. We're not telling you what to do. We're just saying, this is what worked for me. And it's by sharing, by having 34 different experiences of how they got to that point where it clicked. You know, is what I'm going for here, if that makes sense. And so even what you were talking about right now, Rick, that's exactly it. Okay. Hey, this is what worked for me. I don't know if it's gonna work for you, but it worked for me. And then what happens is, then they can go and bounce to the next person, and the next person. And what happens is, I just, as someone that's sort of just one step ahead of you at the moment, right? It's just like, everyone's got it. You all got it. Like, you might not know how it connects and relates to everything yet in the relevant note phase, but in regards to fleeting and literature notes, Rome and Zettelkasten, you got it. It's clicked.
Okay, good, thank you.
And so what we're gonna do is this: we're gonna go back into the main room here, right? We've got another 3.5 minutes here. We're gonna go back into the main room, and I know that some of you, I mean, public speaking is tough, and then you're public speaking with 70 people is even harder. And then the fact that it's behind a computer, it's probably even worse. But some of you that haven't spoken up, your work has been phenomenal. And I just feel like, listen, it's just us now. And it's just like how, that girl that I saw, from 6 years ago at the movie theater, and it was just like instantly we were like, oh my God, and we were just minds blown. This is a small community here as well. And you might never know when you might stumble upon these people again. And it's just, I'm just encouraging everyone that hasn't necessarily spoken up and hasn't been as vocal to consider it. And I'm encouraging you and I'm empowering you to do it, because if you're in this room, you got it. And it's even if it's not the most eloquent way, there's something very special about being able to, even if you're just 1 foot in front of somebody, it's still that 1 foot that can help guide them along. And I hope that we can look at it in that regards, if that makes sense.
Are we going to be teaching them all the way to the permanent note? Because I definitely...
No.
Okay, because I don't mind teaching people, but I was like, okay, the fleeting note thing I probably could do, but I loved what Rick was saying there. I was like, dang, I don't feel qualified to teach this. But when you say it, this is what worked for me, that does make that's helpful.
Exactly. And this is how I look at it. We got about another 2 minutes here. When we go back into the main group, I'm just going to take a look at all the questions, right? And I'm going to pose a question to the group. And it's just really just any of the 34 people that are in here, when something is like, oh, I know how to do that. Because I told them to be very specific in the questions that they're asking, right? And if you struggle with that and you found your way through it, just unmute yourself and answer the question is what I'm asking for. And and you've got me right here too. I know how to elicit questions out of you to help you tell the answer to them. I can help you with that. And we're gonna take it one by one, but it's just it's risky. It's yes.
I feel brave tonight because I've actually put my video on for the first time.
That's what I'm saying, and it's just, listen, this is risky. I don't know, but I just looked at it like I was reading everyone's work, and you all are there. You're all there. But now the best way to really crystallize that, permanent notes, the best way to crystallize that is by going, let me show you how to, let me show you what worked with me, to be able to explain it in your own words. So we got 15 seconds here. So so again, what I'm going to do is this. We're going to jump back over to the main room, or jump back to the auditorium, right? And then I'm going to look through all the questions in regards to fleeting notes, literature notes, and Rome and Zettelkasten. And they're going to be specific. And so they're going to be specific. So, and then I'm just going to pose it to anyone that was, I'm just going to pose it to the group. And if everyone, just raise your hand, unmute yourself, whatever that looks like, and we got this. We got this. Okay, so I'll see everyone back at the auditorium room, okay? Let's jump back over to the auditorium. Breakout rooms, auditorium. There it is at the bottom. It's always moving around. There we go. If there's no risk, there's no reward. And what I'm attempting to do right now is probably risky, but I've read through everyone's answers here, and I've read through everyone's work, and it's like, it's not really risky. And if anything, I think it's going to be very illuminating. And so what I want to start off with is I'm going to go go to the graph and let's go to, let me go and share my screen so everyone knows. Boom.
Hey, Bo, sorry to interrupt. I think Marvin wants to join the other room, but he's unable to. Will you be able to send it?
Red Rover, tell him to go back into the lobby. So exit the breakout room, go back into the lobby, and Matt McKinley will help you out. Did that help?
Yeah, he says thanks.
Awesome. Okay. Should we start with fleeting notes? Let's start with fleeting notes. Yeah, let's start with fleeting notes. I'm gonna go into the linked references here. Hopefully everyone can see. Okay. Let's start with, let me go. I'm just gonna go to a random one. I'm just gonna go, okay. Let's go to, here's a good one, I think. Okay, perfect.
A little bit.
Yes?
Please.
Nope. What's going on? Okay. All right. So Mike has a question, and I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in up a little bit. The question is, how do you manage non-contextual notes, and how many times do you review them or pass through? How we got to that question was, I get that fleeting notes are my own commentary on what I'm reading or something I've watched. I used to do these kind of things in Evernote. They weren't linked, but I would tag them. I never did multiple passes. All of my questions are around the process of refining fleeting notes and multiple passes and how to manage these things without any specific context. Are people using headers and linked literature notes when they are capturing their fleeting notes? How do we determine how many passes to do? I feel like the main difference that I'm seeing in this course is that we seem to be trying to refine what may be our most trivial or banal of thoughts and trying to go really deep into those, but it's not something I've ever done before.
Hey, Bo, just a quick heads up. Something is up with the Zoom. We don't see your screen anymore.
Yeah, it was there, but it just stopped about a couple of minutes in.
Just the green got there.
How about now?
Okay, it's back. Yeah.
Okay. Let me go in. I mean, what's a Zoom call without a little bit of hiccups, you know? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Cool. Awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm just gonna pose this to the group here. My camera isn't working out for sure.
Oh no, we lost the screen again.
Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Bo, are you putting something on top of your screen share?
No.
When you're sharing, are you putting another window on top?
No, negative.
No.
It's just my computer's, yeah, I got recording on one end, and I'm just gonna pose the question. My computer's acting funky, right? Whatever. We're just gonna run with it here. How do you, basically, how many, well, the question that I hear asking is, okay, so what's the point of doing all these passes in the fleeting and literature note phases? Why are we, you know, talking, why are we refining what may seem to be trivial and these banal thoughts? Like, why are we doing that? This is posed to the Goldmine group.
Just practice.
Practice for what? What do you, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Please.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's practice on sort of like multiple levels. Like on one hand, we're sort of trying to, I think like you said last week, understand what we think, and we're sort of iterating our way towards that sort of destination. Like, what do I really think? And then just iterating my way toward that.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
What part?
How is it that you're able to see what you think?
By articulating it, right? Like, because you think you know what you think, but until you actually try to externalize it, get out of your head, make it a thing that exists in the world, even if that's on the screen, then you don't really know what it is. And then the more you start to try to articulate it, the more the more it becomes real to you, and the more you begin to understand whether you even understand it at all. Something like that.
So Mike, is Mike in the room?
I'm here. Yep. I even turned on my camera, even though
Hey. So
I look like stir-fried shit, but here I am.
The question is, are they answering your question?
Yeah, I think so. Like after I asked the question of myself, I kind of started to think like, well, really, like, have you even examined why that is? As opposed, it's like I've kind of had the question, and it's been kind of nebulous, and then kind of wrote out the question. And as I was writing it, and when you went to select it, I was like, no, don't pick me. But then it's like, oh, well, here we go. But it kind of dawned on me. It's like, well, yeah, it's like, it's like I'm not going to get the name. Ayomide?
Ayomide, yeah.
Ayomide, yeah. It's like you said that, it's like, it allowed, do I know what I'm actually thinking? And then the breakout room name, like, can I mine any gold out of this? Like, this is this thought. It seems like it's a surface thing. If I try to break it down and look at it, is there something else? Is there some original idea in there? And if there is, can I extract it? And if not, if it really is banal, then I discard it. That's the whole point of the fleeting note. But until I actually examine it, I don't know if there's any gold there. I don't know if I'm thinking what I think that I'm thinking. So I think that did answer my question.
And I'd like to piggyback on that by asking this, right? To the people that are current and that were part of the gold mine breakout room here. Here's a question to sort of layer on top of what Mike is saying, and that is, why is it that Rome is effective at being able to sort of write those things out?
I think it's because you can move your thoughts around on paper, only it's on screen. So you can write it and it hasn't got to stay in that position permanently. You can move it up or move it down or add something above it or whatever.
And then Glenn, I think, wanted to add something to that as well. Again, just unmute. Just unmute yourself.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, everybody. Yeah, I was just gonna say, for me, like, I feel very comfortable with fleeting notes because me being a writer, coming up, writing, hundreds of journals practically, it is very much like a conversation. So in the fleeting notes area, I might get, really kind of chatty with myself, actually, because it's just like a conversation. So to go through it as a second pass or a third pass means to say, like, what is the real conversation happening here? What is the crux of this that I can go ahead and soon pass on over to the literature notes, because I've been having such a blast with this actually in my own craft and just really growing in this. Like, I'll write something in fleeting notes, like in my own fleeting notes, like, damn, like, my computer is really cold right now, right? Just something really chatty like that. And that's an example of something that really won't make it over to the literature notes. So to go through the second and third pass or fourth pass or whatever it is just to basically understand, like, what's really at the heart of this right now. And the other stuff, obviously, it can remain. You don't have to delete it. It's all there for later. But anyway, that's my take on that.
Here's a question for you, Glenn. I see Bart, I see you, Ina, right? Here's a question for you. Do you think over time, as you practice this habit, that sometimes you may not need to go down 5-6 layers deep? Sometimes, it's.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I find myself, as I do it more, I almost become like clearer in my thoughts, actually. It's funny, to the point where sometimes when I'm writing fleeting notes, I'm asking myself, are these already literature notes? Because they're just getting, I feel like even within the fleeting notes, I'm getting closer and consolidating and clearer in my mind. So yeah, I guess that's one question I have between that in a literature notes, though I do kind of understand that the difference there is that you're actually connecting, if it's a subject matter, that you're actually connecting with the author. But I guess in fleeting notes, if I'm doing stuff in my own journal or whatever, I almost don't even want to take them to literature notes, because it's just all my stuff, all my, I'm not studying, I'm not like looking over a specific subject or looking at a book or a PDF or article or whatever. I'm just kind of like searching my heart, basically,
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Well, I think that touches upon another question that everyone with your hands raised. I have a question for you to sort of to add on top of what Glenn was asking is how do you know the delineation between a fleeting note and a literature note? To Roy, Bart, Ina, Lee, Rick.
Hey, this is Lee. What struck me when Glenn spoke there just now was I feel like whenever I write anything, it is the literature note, right? So the writing I do is very technical. And so I gather data or I try and, accumulate that from the reading. And it seems like everything I'm writing is the literature note, and nothing that I capture as fleeting seems to have any value in that path. I go right to literature, permanent, and then why did I do the fleeting is what I'm left with. So I feel like I'm maybe missing some gold here. Maybe I should have gone to the gold mine side, but I feel like I'm missing some gold here that I'm just not getting.
If I can jump back in just real quick.
Yes.
The reason why I think fleeting notes for me is so important is because my background is I write as a poet, basically. So my poetry is very kind of sporadic and crazy. So my whole life I've been writing like this. So that's why this is special to me, because it's all over the place. So when I jump into fleeting notes under the banner of fleeting notes, it's a big sandbox for me. And that's the way my writing has been over the years. So for me now to kind of come into this, and that's kind of like my area. I do see, however, if somebody were to like see me on stage reading poetry, sometimes they'll be like, that's like 150 ideas in one little section that you just spurted out. But for somehow or another, it all kind of connects in a way, and that's where like I'm looking at like something like fleeting notes and then consolidating with thumbnail summaries at the parent level, and all of that is just like blowing my mind, actually. And if I was just gonna like leave and take away, one thing from this whole thing experience, is like I'd just be writing fleeting notes forever and just like putting thumbnails at the top of it at parent level, and maybe doing another parent level after that or whatever, to do a second or third, to do a third or fourth pass or whatever. But obviously, like for me to carry it on over is even into literature notes is important, but just the way that my mind works, it's very much like the fleeting notes part of it is really important, because sometimes my notes might just be a couple little words here, a couple little, and I actually want to say, oh, I want to build on that. Let's build it. And this and this and this and that, that's what's at the heart of it, 30 minutes later, then carried it on over. I hope that was helpful. I don't know.
Thank you, Glenn. Again, I'm just, I see like 6 hands up.
I'll jump in if I may. It's Rick. Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think this, it all points to, resonates kind of with what I was saying earlier, or my concerns about how I was approaching this. For me as well, a lot of work is done in fleeting notes. I think the term fleeting notes is a bit of a misnomer for me, because in addition to being just initial impressions and reactions to the reading, a lot of continual work is done, revisions and additions, and I don't see any need to elevate, in quotes, elevate fleeting notes into literature notes, except maybe to condense what I take to be the author's intended meaning and maybe a brief summary of my reaction to whatever that happens to be.
So, Rick, let me just stop you 1 second. For the people that were in the Goldmine group, here's a question, because I'm looking at Rick's fleeting and literature notes for exercise day 2021. Why is it, to the Goldmine group here, why is it important to summarize that big wall of text at the parent level block? For someone that hasn't answered yet, why is it important? Maybe Alan, or I'm just looking at.
You have to.
I think
you have to show your understanding, right? You have to, like, by doing that, writing out in your own words, you're proving to yourself you understand what they're talking about, and it's summarizing it just in a few pithy like sentences, so you can refer back to it quickly.
Why? So Andy, why else is it important to have that at the parent level block?
So you can collapse everything underneath it, maybe, and just have it as a summary.
I think it's a combination of memory and analysis, kind of like, or the way I interpret it is there's always a difference between active reading and passive reading, where it can be very easy to read through something, but that doesn't mean that you've processed it fully. So I think summarizing it at the parent level, helps you to prove, kind of like what Andy's saying, that you've processed it fully. But then on top of it, I think that by paraphrasing it and rewriting it in your own words is that you're transferring it from your working memory into your long-term memory. So it helps to create a storage retrieval system where you can now much easier reference back the information that you kind of have already processed. I kind of see it as like, there's a lot of quotes that we hear that are absolutely beautiful. We get the gist of them, but we'll never able to remember the exact wording unless you actually dedicate time to remembering it. But you'll remember the gist of what that quote is trying to say. So I feel like passages are doing, like when you're trying to paraphrase passages, that's kind of a similar aspect.
I'm just so glad that it's being recorded, by the way, because anyways, keep going. Sorry.
Well, just to add on to Eunice's point, I think one thing, I went back and reread some work by Peter Elbow this week, who's, a theorist on writing, and I connected two things that I'd never connected before. I think one of the sort of things I always felt was a detriment of fleeting notes is actually an advantage, and that is all those kind of cul-de-sacs, you let your thoughts wander away before you come back up and summarize, and then summarize in the literature note. Well, the reading material that you started down this path with is a trigger, and there was something in it that was meaningful to you, or you wouldn't have made the original note. But all that sort of associational writing you're doing in the fleeting note stage is actually strengthening your memory. And I was worried, well, what if I can't find something that's buried in a fleeting note? At one level, it may not matter, but at another level, I'm very likely to, because my brain remembers that little rabbit run of how I got there, because it's my brain. And so I'm building an invisible Zettelkasten in my brain while I'm in the process of trying to build a tangible one in Rome. And I don't know, I just found that kind of, because Peter Elbow talks about that very explicitly in the sort of associational aspect of some of that sort of free writing. So I almost think of fleeting notes as like free writing around a node of thought, and then you come back to it.
You hit the nail on the head. Let me ask you this. How easy, because I'm looking at your page right now, Roy, how easy was it to just enter the permanent note? Because you did it. For you, it was automatic. It was easy for you. Can you tell us a little bit about your process of, because I see your fleeting notes, very, very clear. Literature notes, all there. You did all the passes, and then you even added a permanent note at the top. How did you get to that point?
Well, I like I say, I stopped worrying about trying to remember how. I think in Aaron's, when he first started saying, "Don't worry about how you're going to find it," that was really hard for me to accept. But I think it was basically read something, it triggered something in my mind. I went and explored that and the other things it triggered. Then I went back and said, okay, now how do I want to Eunice's point, restate what the author said in a way that's meaningful to me? And then what's the point of this to me? In terms of how do I want to apply it in my life? I can't remember who, somebody in the first session talked about their sort of biblical teaching method, and it was, what's it say, what's it mean, what am I going to do with it in my life? That was kind of almost the method, though I wasn't that explicit or orderly about it.
and I think, but I also want to mention as well, you know, you didn't. I when I was reading through your fleeting notes, Roy, it almost felt like you didn't have to abstract out everything you needed to, because this is something that you've studied, and this is something that you've wrestled with for a very long time. So you don't need. I don't see all these different layers, but you still got to where you needed to get to. Am I correct? Like, this is something that you know pretty damn well, what he's talking about.
I hope so. I hope I feel like you're giving me too much credit, but I hope you're right.
But do you know what I mean? Because you were able to really get to it, and that's the beauty of this as well. It's like, sometimes when you're doing these fleeting notes, you don't have to go all the way down. Sometimes you got it. So it's almost like, if I talk about, method acting, I know exactly what this is about, And it's like, for Roy, it's like, you got this because you completely understand this. So it's like, does that make sense?
It's giving me a system for connecting a bunch of things I had loosely rattling around in my brain that I've read. So it's kind of lighting my brain on fire, because it's like, now instead of all this stuff just flying around, I can retrieve some of that other stuff and apply it, even in the fleeting note. So yeah, it's giving me a structure to order some of what's otherwise just free floating. So
Okay.
I may be skipping some steps.
I've got just to switch gears here. I've got a question from Ilham, and it says, question about literature notes. Okay. This is more of a comment than a question, but wanted a confirmation of if my strategy makes sense when it comes to forcing us to not fall into the trap of writing literature notes in the fleeting notes. For day 20, while trying, I should probably try to see if I can share my screen. Hopefully this works. Let me know if you guys are having trouble. It's coming up, right?
Yes. And
Yes, we can see it.
good and clear. Just to add on to that comment, Bob, because I think that's also the issue that I've been struggling with is it's when I'm writing the fleeting notes, and then when I go back for the second pass, I feel like, wait a minute, this isn't actually something that resonated with me, but it's more like I'm really reading deeply what the writer is saying, and is this a literature note? So I think that's also one of the questions I had. If you look in my graph.
So what I hear you asking is, how do you know what's a literature note and what's a fleeting note? Is that what are you saying, or?
It's more so like, I think you had asked the question earlier about delineating between a fleeting note and a literature note.
Mm-hmm. So yes, so so the question to the gold mine here: how do you delineate between a literature note and a fleeting note in your in the work that you've been doing up to this point? How are you able to delineate that?
Hey, Bo, it's the other Mike.
Yes, Mike.
So just a response to you, or just a thought. One of the things that you did that really helped me was in the instructions. You said with the fleeting note, if you look at my fleeting notes, you'll see what is it about it that resonated with you. You were asking for sort of these subjective questions. And so it kept me from doing a deep dive, because what Martha's saying, I would have gone down that same path myself, but instead you said, what is it that resonates with you, and that type of thing. That for me, it was a game changer, because all of a sudden I kept it just to myself, my own subjectivity. I fleshed out my feelings about agency and whatever, and that helped me keep it separate, so that when I went to do the literature note, it was totally chalk and cheese. It was a completely different thing, and I didn't feel like I was doing it over again. So I don't know if that helps, but your questions that you asked us, yeah, right here. What resonates with me? Why does it resonate with me? And then I went one step further, because of my studies and stuff. I want to put things in categories. And I said, does this fit into a category? Whatever, right? I don't know. I mean, I'm just sort of learning and thinking through this stuff. But by having those questions, that helped me kind of parse out my thoughts for the fleeting note. So take that for what it's worth. It worked for me.
That's great. Can I jump in here?
Yes, of course.
All right, fantastic, excellent. Just to piggyback a little bit on what Michael just said, but I think, now I'll caveat this by saying I am one of those people who's actually catching up a little bit. So initially I didn't think I should go into the Goldmine group, but I've actually been investigating and looking and trying to implement a Zettelkasten for myself, probably since about March last year, off and on, thinking through a lot of angles. So this is coming from a little bit of the experience I have had trying to create a system. And I actually came in here because I was looking for some help from this group on actually really formalizing my system. And I think sometimes, at least for me, what I found was the delineation between fleeting and literature can actually be a little bit of a red herring. That what seems to me, or what seemed to be the most critical, was what I found a lot of times when I was trying to create notes, was often there's this hurdle about putting down something significant or figuring out how to write it down in a way that captures all the context. And where I found that delineation really helpful for me is fleeting is, by its definition, anything that pops into mind when I'm pulling in information. When I'm reading through a book, that for me, it made sense to have a place where I didn't have to do that much pre-thinking about should this be put down or not. I could literally just anything that came to mind. I think this is where some of the guided examples in the earlier stages from you, Bo, were really helpful. Anything that came to mind, you just toss it down there. The second pass is more just to add any more color to those thoughts if necessary. But the moment I start trying to even do some pre-crystallization, I start coming to any clarity or realizations, I just start tossing those up into literature notes. Because for me, I think it was easy then to look at that bucket of fleeting notes as stuff that there should be a very low hurdle to putting anything down. I'm not asking myself, is this necessary? It's literally just put anything down there. But the moment I start trying to do a bit more significant synthesis, if by my second pass, I'm getting to something that I'm like, oh, I really, really want to remember this, I throw it up into literature notes immediately. So that's what I found works for me.
I think a great example of that is Bart. So I'm going to share my screen. Bart, can you just walk us through how you were able to do your fleeting and literature notes? Because this is incredible. Like, what was it? What was your sort of step-by-step process? I hate to put you on blast, but I had no choice.
Fleeting, I don't know that I could add anything. My fleeting notes are just my initial impressions of what I'm reading. It's like I don't want to lose them. Something might be important there, so I write it down because I don't want to lose it. It doesn't matter if it is or it isn't, right? Second pass, you start going into the things that are important. You can add a bit more to it. What's your question? Like, how do I get to literature?
Or just walking us through a little bit of your process, because I look at this and even when you summarized here and you summarized here, you can see how you got to there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're very similar, and it's like by the time I finish the fleeting note, it's pretty clear what it means to me, and I'm already thinking about how is this going to impact my greater system, where the system could be the project I'm working on. For me, it's my dissertation or the Zettelkasten as a whole, right? It's already going in that direction. So what is it exactly the author was saying that's important towards what's important to me? But fleeting isn't that. I don't want to be thinking about that in my fleeting note, right?
Do you think it's a step-by-step process, or do you think it's more of a...
It's definitely step by step, but I don't think I could have got to this literature note without doing the fleeting notes.
Why?
Right?
Why?
Because the fleeting notes exposed what's important to me. Right? And the literature notes are capturing also what's important to me, but through the eyes of the author. You know, in academic work, that would be very important, right? Exactly what the author was saying, how he said, but it's more than what he said, and it's more than just a paraphrase. It's how is that important to me? How is it resonating? But it is his exact words or his or her exact words. It is step by step, and I couldn't have got that. I couldn't have summarized that literature note on the top of that bullet without that.
I'll open up to the whole group in the auditorium here. Do you have any other specific questions that you're just having a hard time? You know, maybe you're on day 12, or maybe you're on day 15, or maybe you're on day 15. Just, are you having a hard time with anything that you'd like to just get a little bit of help from the gold mine?
If I can ask something kind of related to this, but goes in another direction. I really liked Onu's way of putting this as, you know, you don't have any commitment or any structure for your fleeting notes. It can be whatever thoughts comes into your mind. But then at the same time, there were several times in which in the daily exercises, Bo was asking us to make fleeting notes as contextualized as possible so that in the future we can come back to them. And to me, it seems like there is some sort of battle here between context and the stream of consciousness. Because at least in my own writing, necessarily if I'm just, you know, just letting it flow and investigating whatever comes to mind, it's not going to be understandable one day from now, maybe an hour. So I don't know, I wanted to know if anyone has any specific insights into this question between completeness versus speed or flow. Does that make sense?
How do you delineate between the speed of or the abstraction process and like getting the work done? Is that?
I think if I may jump in here, if I understood you correctly, you're asking when you're doing the fleeting notes, your brain is going wire like in all directions, and you don't want to interfere with that process and kind of organize your fleeting notes a little bit to make them recoverable in time, right? So you want to focus on letting it flow. I have the same problem, but I thought when you go down, so you do something and then you go down, you do like a child note and a child note, and so each note by itself is actually meaningless, but if you read the whole family, it makes sense, you know? So that idea of nesting kind of solves this problem organically. I don't know if I'm making sense here.
Can someone add anything to this idea of organically and just allowing the things to happen?
I think what's important.
Okay, sorry, after you.
It's okay. I think that's what's important to remember, that I mean, our society and culture and everything that we're around surrounds us, tells us what to think. And so this process is a way of like pushing that aside so that you don't like, notice he's not having us summarize first what the author's trying to say. That's like way after we've processed. Because if we did that first, if we're like, okay, this is what the author's trying to say, we've now just told our brains what we're supposed to think based on what we think the author's supposed to say. So I think the idea is to like peel that, like just push it right off, take that meat suit right off. And it's like how, like internally, I guess, it's just like going through those layers. It's like you're the first stuff you get out is just be quick responses and gut responses. And a lot of it's going to be pre-programmed, but then you start to like let it go and you let it go. And you're like, okay, now I need to stand from this side. Then I'm going to stand from this side. And it's really teaching perspective and insight. In fact, I almost had a hard time going back to permanent notes because I was like, dang, I don't really care what you're saying anymore. Like I figured out, I mean, you helped lead me to this really great path. And I thank you, author, for putting me on that journey. But it's not really that important to me anymore what you actually, like what you said. That's, you know, the important is that you prompted it. So like, just let yourself go and discover who you are and what's inside. And yeah, you're a compilation of everything that people have put in you, but you are a unique blend of all of those things. And you're not going to know who you are uniquely unless you like let it out. And that's really what, like when Bo says emergent, it's such a good way to say it, because he's like, let's go from the bottom up. But inside, really, I think he's saying, let's peel all the layers and get to like what's way in there. And then let's build it from there. So I guess it's almost like reverse engineering, I guess, to a better you.
Yeah, this is Roy, to combine a little bit, Samantha, what you're saying, and back to Ilham's point. I almost think that as a in words, a reversed mind map. I circle around a topic with the fleeting notes and then try and figure out what the central node of the mind map would be. And to your point, though, about you might not even reading it, not knowing if you'd make sense of it a day from now, I actually think that's not quite as true as you may feel, because you could probably guess within 2 or 3 topics where that would be, because they're connected. you know, it was connected to something. So you're just trying to remember a handful of triggers that would get you back to that space. So I bet it would make more sense than you feel. At least that plays out that way sometimes.
Can I respond to
I will
Stephen
say-
in the
Okay,
chat?
sorry.
Well, Stephen's comment in the chat group there, he wrote, I struggle keeping up with my thoughts that flow much faster than my writing follows. So like I've done two methods. My first one was as my thoughts go, I kind of unpacked it and each time I go. But then after Bo's prompting, I think it was last week where he said, okay, what comes to mind quickly? And I did that this last time where I was like, okay, so I think for Stephen, that might work better for you where you're like quickly, and it's just like a private note to yourself that prompts you. So like it could be a place or a person or a thing, but just something super quick that's just going to prompt you. It's like insider you language. And then you just like, okay, it made me think of this, 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 and this, and then go back and then unpack them. So there's like, I think 2 different ways of doing fleeting notes. So you just have to figure out what's best for you and what's best in the circumstance. Especially if your brain goes really crazy, then you want to jot down those quick notes and then go back and unpack them.
Here's the question.
I just like to, sorry.
Well, who was that? Was that Doc? Ayomide?
Yeah, it was me.
Here's a question for you. Here's a direct question for you.
All right, hit me.
Other than the photographs, how did you practice literature notes? Like, I'm quite lost here. I don't feel like I truly practice literature notes in the book club. Where should we have written literature notes other than in the photos? How have you been able to understand what literature notes are without explicitly saying we're doing literature notes?
I'm actually not sure. The answer I would normally have given is the photos, but you've taken that off the table. So to be fair, I did pop in late, so late into the book club. So maybe that's
No, I did ask that to someone else.
sorry.
Did you have another question anyways?
Yeah, I was just gonna say sort of off of Samantha's point, but then also sort of talk about something I do, which I'm not actually sure is, you know, like I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. And it has to do with the whole thing about like using fleeting notes as a sort of free space, stream of consciousness, playful space, you know, where I can just sort of play with the thoughts in my head, and sort of using the whatever is in the text that I'm looking at as a jump off point to what's interesting here, right? And then ending up sometimes with permanent notes that have no relationship to the text itself. But that said, sometimes one of the things that happens is while I'm fleeting through my fleeting notes, I feel like I've got to a point of depth that I feel like I think the summary I'm going to use for these fleeting notes feels like a permanent note. And sometimes I've just gonna, permanented it, as it were. But I don't know if I'm cheating when I do that. I usually feel like I'm cheating a little bit. But I generally also feel like I've gone in depth enough, or I feel like I've gotten somewhere that I didn't see myself getting to when I started. And so I was just wondering what your thoughts would have been on that. But you can come back to that later. It doesn't have to be dealt with now.
Ayomide, that's a little bit past the scope because we haven't even gotten into
All right. Okay, never mind.
Yet. You know what I mean? Your scope, but I'll answer that with you offline. Okay. But
I think I can take a stab at the fleeting to literature note transition. At least it's like I think fleeting notes, kind of like what Ayomide is saying, and I think what Samantha and everyone's kind of been repeating too, is like the idea is like it's really just your instant reaction to something. There isn't really much thought or analysis. It can just be like, this is interesting. It's almost like if you're reading a book, a physical book, it's like when you highlight or when you like exclamation point or star something, it's just like an indicator that this piece is interesting. And then I think what ends up happening is like why fleeting notes work is because you go through multiple passes. So being like the struggle of between fast capture and context analysis, I think that is almost like a false dichotomy, because when you go through multiple passes of fast capture, you naturally will end up crystallizing your thought and distilling it into something that's more pure. And then I think the transition from fleeting to literature notes is when your fleeting notes tend to be your reaction or your response to what you're reading. Your literature notes, there's going to be that subtle flavor where it's a unique, something that a unique or profound thought that's your own. It's like how this piece now, I'm kind of reabsorbing and transforming it into something that's interpreted from my own perspective. At least that's kind of my delineation. I don't think it's ever going to be fully black and white, but I think that it's like a very subtle shift in thinking. I don't know if that worked.
Does anyone else want to add on that?
Yeah, I want to add on this briefly because in the exercise about the photos, I went back and I reworked I tried to go deeper a little bit. And in that process, I discovered, so in that process, I added more and more layers to my fleeting notes. And I discovered new ideas that I didn't think about, although I thought, okay, I figured this out. This is super clear to me. But then I discovered other ideas that I thought, oh, okay, this makes actually more sense. But it only became accessible to me through that really deeper level of fleeting notes. And then I think that's what my takeaway message is, that we shouldn't underestimate the fleeting. Even though if sometimes we feel like we know the subject, it might prompt us to figure out things that we never connected to that subject before, or get some insights that we never thought of. And you was like,
Enrique, does that answer your question? We'll get through.
I have a couple of things. It's Brother Spirit
Yes.
chiming in.
Yes.
A couple of things in relation to Henrique's question, or Enrique. I don't know what the pronunciation is. Yeah. So I really love what everybody's been saying, and it's all kind of. I get the sense that it's getting clearer and clearer for me as I do it. And I think the distinction, I think somebody's already put this in the comments, but the distinction between fleeting note and literature note maybe starts to melt a little bit. And I like the idea of just first pass, second pass, third pass, fourth pass, fifth pass. And so it's the distinctions are not necessarily so important, but I think how I characterize it for myself is that the fleeting note, in the fleeting note phase, I'm not going to edit my thoughts at all. I'm just going to pour them out without judging them and without them having to be grand or insightful, or just whatever's coming up, I can just pour it out. And then I trust that the wheat will be separated from the chaff in the second pass and the third pass, because it's curation, right? Every pass is curation. When I summarize something at the top level, I don't have to summarize everything that I wrote in the fleeting notes pass, because maybe I realize that in the first pass, there's stuff that's not that interesting or not worth putting in my top level summary. So I can kind of trust that my later mind will be able to figure out what was really important from and distinguish it from what was just, you know, some passing notion that just popped through my brain that I'm not very interested to come back to. And this connects for me to, I don't know if you remember, like I think the first call we had, I asked this question about indentation, which has been bothering me for like months with Rome. I never really felt like I got the heuristic. But thanks to what a lot of people shared, and thanks to all of the work that both been giving us, I kind of suddenly, I got it. And basically, or at least I think I got it. What I got was that basically, because Bo's making us summarize at the top, the summary, the summarization should actually be recursive. Right, that was the total click point for me when I realized that every step of the tree down I should be able to hide all further nodes down the tree and still get something from the visible node. So the top level summarization is just the last step in that process, but each step down the tree is a summarization of what is underneath it. So I love what Roy said, which is it's kind of like this reverse mind mapping where you start from the kind of like most granular things, and then it's kind of like the structure. It's like you have a block of stone and the statue is revealed from within the block of stone. As you carve away all the pieces, you find the structure. So that, I don't know if that's clear, but that really, really helped me with the indentation and the summarization, because it's both curation, but also this sense of recursive summarization at each level. Okay, that's what I got.
I think, you know, as I'm listening to everyone talk, I almost feel like if you wanted to see a manifestation of what the entire process of fleeting literature and permanent notes is, like this is exactly it. First you sort of have these questions and you sort of go on these tangents, and then you start going back to, okay, this reminds me of this, and then you start relaying that to this, and then you finally get to this point where it's like, aha, here's a crystallized thought. I'm looking through these questions now. Here's a question for the Goldmine group here, right? Oh, I think I hear music, I hear sounds. Here's a question for the group here: is what is writing in Rome do? What does that do? What does writing in Rome do? I know it's very broad, but I don't want to lead it too much, but what does writing in Rome do?
Well, I could speak up on this. I think it's like it helps to clarify your thinking. Mostly it's a memory aid for me. I treat it as like a second brain and a memory aid. And I think it takes thoughts which are abstract in the mind and make them concrete. I think that's a concrete process, but that's also really interesting because it uses like the power of technology to allow remixing of the blocks or even discrete words, which is kind of interesting.
Heather, let me ask you this. How were you hesitant? Were you hesitant in fighting against this writing in Rome?
Was I hesitant against it?
Or was it like, what the hell are we doing? Was it like, it wasn't like, there was still like, you had to get to that point where it was like, oh. Could you explain that a little?
Hesitation. I don't know, I guess like the process took a while to get used to for writing in Rome. I don't know, I find like it really mixes well with my thoughts in the way just like capturing in bullets like what I'm thinking about and putting it down, and then I can go deep if I want to. I usually do like auditing work, so sometimes it'll be really focused work, so I can go like 10 layers deep on an idea and come back. So I wasn't hesitate to work with the software. I'm not sure if you're talking specifically about the book. Maybe I misunderstood your question.
More in regards to what is the importance of allowing yourself to write in order to get to that point where it's almost like the unconscious sort of takes a hold and it sort of reveals these insights. Did you have that sort of experience?
A little bit, I'd say in the session with you about just like going that one extra place. I wouldn't say it was like super enlightening because like say an audit, I usually we ask so what a ton of times because we usually have to go quite deep to kind of figure out the insider piece about like why something is going on. So it was something I think I naturally did. It's really been interesting to put it actually over into my personal life and go deep, where I never really thought to do that before. I would do it professionally, but not kind of personally for my own Rome system.
Hey, Bo.
Yeah, hi.
I'm glad you asked this question because I was thinking about this. don't know if you've ever heard of Ryan Holiday and of course Robert Greene. They have that note card system, so it's similar to Zettelkasten. So I was going to start that analog, right? And you had to think about like, was it worth it? Because it's high maintenance, and I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of his closet. He's got bins and bins of note cards. And he says whenever he wants to write a book, or whenever he wants to write, or whenever he wants to think of something, he goes to the closet and thumbs through the note cards. So I was like, oh shit, that's a lot of work. That's fucking high maintenance. What would be better than this, right? So luckily I came across you on Twitter, and you doing this book club with Zettelkasting on Rome. And I think what you realize with Rome is that block, and how you're able to put that summary up on the block, the parent block, and eventually use that like Robert Greene or Ryan Holiday do. And whenever you're ready to write or whatever you want to do, you're able to go back to that parent block and see that in one note a year from now, 2 years from now, and hopefully be able to recapture the thought that you had, expand it if you wanted to, but in the parent block by itself, be able to see all that. And so this will be utilitarian, because at the end, there's got to be a purpose for all of this.
Lito, let me ask you this, because I'm looking at your work right here, right? Would you have been able to get as clear of a literature note without going through this part and this part and this part, and why?
The quick answer is no, because I would not have written it down. I mean, there's only so much your kind of analog system can handle. And so with Rome, all that you see there is just like we've been talking about. It's just writing. Your wrist may hurt after a while, but you can come back to it, and it's there, and it's permanent, and it's in place. And when you come back that second or third time, a day or two later, or a couple of hours later, it starts to gel and it starts to crystallize. And I mentioned this earlier. I didn't write any literature notes. I went through the fleeting notes multiple times, and I felt confident. And so I just wrote one note for the literature, and it was at the parent block.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Did that feel right?
Yes. And I had to not be scared about it. I just had to this is what I understand, and I'm not going to get any more understanding from it. I put it in my own words and said, F it.
Is everyone listening? Because he is hitting the nail on the head. This is why you can't teach someone Zettelkasten, because what works for me is not going to work for Lito. And it's just, you have to, can you explain a little bit more of what that felt like, of like trusting in yourself and just going, I got this. And like, okay, I don't need to expand this anymore. I just need to put it up. I got excited. Sorry, guys.
No, that was it. Just like you said, it's this exciting feeling, like, oh, okay, this thing you put on there that we had to read, this passage, you read it the first few times, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. And then you go through the fleeting notes and you put everything down, and you come back hours later, day later, and you keep writing in the fleeting notes, and then it just hits you. It's kind of like almost like an intuition thing, and it's this confidence, and you write it. And this is it. I don't need to go, 50 lines of literature notes now. I think I've got it. I don't have to think about it. It's just confidence. And like I was saying, confidence in that if I come back to this 2 years later and want to write about teaching or whatever that was, I've got something there enough to move on. And if I had to, I could expand it and go in further depth and remember what I wrote if I wanted to. But in that itself is what I'm thinking Ryan Holiday and people like that use, because like I said, in his closet, it's just index cards, and the dude's written like multiple books from it. So he had to have had confidence in that parent block, if you will, in his index card. He had to have enough confidence that what he was writing is what he understood from whatever he read or whatever quote he came across. That was it.
What I'd like to do now is I kind of want to, I'm going to put two people on blast here. Simon and Alan, right? They both did these fleeting notes, and it's almost like it's like the yin and the yang, right? And it's just, I kind of want to just go over both of these real quick. And Simon, are you here?
Yeah, hello.
Can you tell us a little bit about your feelings about your fleeting and literature notes?
Yeah, I'll have a go. Yeah, on first reading of the reference material, if you'd have asked me to put together a literature note for it, I'd have found it impossible, to be honest. I'd have, like, writing what the author was saying in my own words would have consisted of me going to dictionaries and thesauruses and going, I don't know. Fleeting notes were really, really useful in sort of really being able to break down each part, go over it, sort of talk to myself about things, actually come to a conclusion at the end of it. That by the time I got to the literature note, it was, for want of a better phrase, a piece of piss. Like I just did it, kind of thing. And I reread it earlier and I was a bit like, oh, I could have done a slightly better job of that. But when I compare it with where I started from and what I got to, I was like, yeah, actually, that's really, really helped me. And a lot of it was the order, going fleeting note, then literature note. Like, I think even if I had have struggled to get something out, the quality in the two would have been, yeah, quite different.
Excellent. And then, Alan, can you walk us through a little bit about with yours?
Yeah, of course. I'm trying to, is there something more specific? I'm trying to like understand how to sort of explain.
Well, I'm gonna let them see it first. Hold on.
All right.
I mean, I love it. Let me collapse this real quick. I feel like it's the best way is just by, you see how, can you explain a little bit about your fleeting, this part right here? Because
sure. Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. So I just read through, and along with reading through, I just, like, if there was I didn't know what ought meant, I sort of inferred and I wrote down that. And as I would go along, I would just, whatever I was thinking in the moment, I would write down. Got to the end and set aside the reference material and just sort of went down the line and assessed if, do I want to speak more deeply on this? Is this useful for me to go down the rabbit hole on this specific bullet point? And some of them were, and some of them weren't. And then I just try to extract as much as I can. What does this actually mean? Why was I thinking this? What is there for me to discover? And I'll go as long as it takes, and it can get as chaotic as it needs to be.
I love how you ask yourself these questions too.
Yeah, and I'll write down the questions that I'm open-ended questions that I'm sort of trying to, that are going on in my mind as I'm going through these things, and that helps me give a point of reference to what's happening. I mean, it's just the conversation I'm having with myself that I'm capturing in the fleeting note. And then out of that, it's just sort of like I come back to, there just comes a certain point where a lot of times I'll write something down and it's like, oh, I think that's sort of the parent level summary. And then I'll just complete with that and I'll move on to the literature note. And I simply just ask myself, okay, given what I just understand about what I was reading, what's my understanding of the text again? And that's kind of what, and it's the same process.
Can you say that one more time? Because that was probably the best definition I have ever heard of a literature note. Can you say that one more time? The difference between a fleeting and a literature note? Everyone pay attention because this is spot on.
Yeah. Once I've come to a certain place of completion with my fleeting note, I'll just take all that information. I'll come back to I'll approach the literature note and I simply ask, okay, given all the meaning I've extracted out of what I read the first go around, what am I thinking the author means here? What if I had to repeat back to him basically what I'm answering is, so what I hear you say is blank. Given the passage you just gave me, what I'm hearing you say is this. And then if I want to go deeply on any of those points, I'll extract more out for the literature note.
How long does this usually take you? this process?
I mean, the more I'm with you, man, the longer it takes.
Do you feel like it's work though, or do you feel like it's flow?
That's a great question.
Probably
Yeah.
both right now.
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely a sense of flow after a certain amount of time. Once the process is, once I can sort of, okay, I could be getting coffee, I could be listening to music, all that shit can just sort of drop away, and I'm engaged in the process, then it's like no problem. I can, I've also actually been like craving more time, and I'm like, how do I reorganize my morning to have like 2.5 hours to spend on just thinking and writing?
I actually had a question about that. I think for me, especially going to the daily habits and tracking it, one thing that I'm struggling with is setting up a system for me to dedicate time towards doing all of this, because it does take considerable time and effort. So it's like, I think I understand how the notes are supposed to be parsed and layered down, but I still haven't figured out a frictionless system for me to, have my notes, transfer them into Roam in a way that like suits kind of my style. So I was just curious if other people have, found a good process. Like I know Readwise is an option, but it still hasn't clicked for me yet. So just, I was curious in general.
We'll get to all that during week 6 when we start focusing on output and workflow. But I think I'm glad you brought this up though, because I do want to continue to emphasize this daily habit thing. And I only touched upon it that one day, but the reason behind this is because that's the hardest part, is going, okay, I have all this information, how do I apply it in my life? And the best way to do that is to know where it fits into your life. And so that's the point of the whole daily habit and tracking it, because it's like tracking, what you intake every day for food. It's difficult, and we're going to over exaggerate or we're going to under exaggerate. But if you have it where you see it over 3 weeks time, then it's like the proof is right there. And it's also creating this thing where you're actually thinking about where you are and what you have around you as you have these fleeting thoughts. What's the type of information that you're taking in? And then what do you have around you at that time? And even just by thinking about that, now it's like churning in your head. It's like, okay, I'm getting this process. I'm getting Zettelkasten. And now it's like, okay, how can I use this? How can I apply this? How can I make this flow?
So, Bo, I just want to touch on something about academics because it's come up a few times. But first, on day 1, you asked us to make a promise, and I promised myself I'd get up and do this before my family got up. But then day 2, I was like, dang, an email came in and then I was responding, and next thing you know, I just worked an extra hour early. So I was pretty mad at myself, but now I'm getting up 45 minutes to an hour earlier than I was before just to get this done. But I'm finding at 2-3 o'clock, I'm like, man, I'm already done my homework. This sucks. I want to go back. So anyway, that was just my side note to like, you can do it if you really want to. Like, I'm not really a morning person, but I'm getting up at 6 in the morning before everybody else so I can get most of it done. So side note about the academics, there's quite a bit of discussion about it. What I was saying about like letting it go, obviously that's not just in academics, doesn't work. I have a master's, which I only got a few years ago. So I would say I'm a practiced academic. If I was using this method in academics, where it would really have been helpful is in my master's, my professors would not let us write unless it was our action research or our main project. We were only allowed to write 2-page papers. And all of you are gonna think this is crazy for a master's, because my friends were all doing them 20, 30, 40, 50 pages. And they'd be like, oh, I spent 3 pages or 4 pages just talking about whether this should be included or not, or where this person's theology was legit or not. But my professors basically made us boil down to I didn't realize this. He pretty much made us all go down, or all of them made us go down to what we would be calling permanent notes. So essentially, like we had to do all those fleeting notes on our own, but I know that one time it took me like 8 hours to get my paper down to 2 pages because there was just so much material. And he's like, you need to learn how to speak concisely because no one's going to read your 20 pages. So this is where this is really helpful in academics, because if you could use the fleeting notes to go through all of the theories and all of the people you're studying, and then start to go back up when you get to your 2-page paper, I mean, it's deep and it's concise and it has impact and it has power. So that's where academics would really, really benefit from. And especially for the regular world, they're not going to read your 20-page paper or however long it is, but they will read your 2-page paper.
We've got about 15, just to switch gears here, we've got about 15 minutes left, right? And I just want to spend this next 15 minutes just focusing on, you know, people that haven't sort of spoken up, or, you know, or maybe have been a little hesitant or maybe camera shy, but I just want to open it up now to people that either have questions or feel like they want to attempt, you know, talking about their experience, just opening up to people that haven't really said anything, and just opening the sort of floor up to them. Again, if you want to just chat, or if you have a question, or if you want to comment on anything that you've heard thus far, just unmute yourself and just chime in. We just want to, you know, construction. Yeah, we just want to hear from you.
Yeah, I guess this is a sharing / question, but the last exercise I was on was the day 14 one, where we're summarizing or doing your fleeting notes on that Sankei paragraph on the shipping boxes. And I was a bit, I know, you know, definitions, don't be so strict, blah, 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 but the stuff about, so fleeting notes, I guess the concept of a summary block for fleeting notes was a bit hard for me to grasp, because my fleeting notes were all over the place and just like riffing off of, oh, that reminds me of this, that reminds me of that. So I wanted to get your all's feedback on, like, how do you summarize that in like a top block? Because it's literally just going to be like 20 random thoughts.
That's a good question. How do you summarize all, how do you, what I hear you saying is, how do you control the chaos of random thoughts?
Well, yeah, I guess so. But I mean, control can convey a different sense. It's more of the specific control of the summary part that I was, and I guess if I were to answer this myself, it would just be like, I just write kind of like the things that kind of feel more important, but also at the same time, it's pretty random stuff. It's like, okay, the box reminded me of that and that and that and that. Oh, the coastal highways. Oh, is he talking about the 5 on the west coast? You know, it's like this. So
Do you think, just there's some heads nodding here. Do you just for the group? Do you think, what does everyone think about this idea of just allowing those random thoughts to reveal? Like, has anyone experienced that? Just following that sort of rabbit down the hole and going, I don't know where this is leading. But
I mean, yeah, I'm since it's my question, I'm gonna keep pushing back on your the guiding of the question up to the group. So I'm fine with just writing down all of that stuff, but it's like, what does it mean to summarize that? Because then I'll just be like saying the same things again, and it's just going to be like another paragraph at the top instead of a summary.
So how would you summarize that? That's a good question. How do you summarize it for people that are really, you know, have got that down? How do you get to that point where you can't put all the different random thoughts in there? How do you summarize it?
I think this is a good question. The way I deal with it so far is I try to, so it's like I do the fleeting notes in stages. So the first, I just like do all those 25 random notes. And then I try to see if there are any connections. So the more I dig deeper and deeper, I try to kind of like, if possible, make them converge. But if not, I also kind of just like select the most relevant one, the one that resonates with me the most, or sometimes the one that I had the most indentations under, because then that's the one that is more relevant in my case.
But how do you know if that's right or wrong?
I don't know, but I think this is what you're trying to tell us, that there is no right or wrong, right? And basically it's that's why you can teach Zettelkasten to people.
Not my Zettelkasten. You could be completely wrong. It's not my Zettelkasten, but it's a conversation.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like up to you to take that risk also and just put that summary up there. And maybe if you look at it like in 2 months, you'll be like, no, this doesn't make any sense, and I will change this. I think that's also possible.
Or you could have another permanent note that is completely arguing that point. You know, with what you've abstracted now and 2 months later.
Exactly.
Without getting too far ahead here. Justin, does that help answer how to summarize at the top level parent block? Closer?
It helps. It helps. Yeah. I think I still have a long-standing kind of, like when I was reading Sankei and him talking about, like I still have a conflict tension between like kind of like distilling the ideas into something that can be more useful as opposed to just recording everything. I don't want to be his, Sankei's friend who has notebooks and he has like nothing published, but I identify with that guy. So yeah, I guess this is still like something.
What day are you on, Justin?
I'm day, that exercise was like several days ago, day 14. And that was like, I was still kind of like a bit from that. So I'm still on day 14.
So just for the group here, how did everyone feel between day 14 to day? Don't give me any crap about the photos, okay? But how does everyone feel from day 14 to day 22? Because a lot happened. A lot happened.
At the risk of spoiling that, one word that comes to mind is thumbnail. Like Bo takes us through a photo exercise and describes the summary almost as a thumbnail of what happens. So I guess like it's something I've struggled with a lot as well. But there's a massive thing there about stirring memories, recollecting and things like that. It doesn't necessarily have to have the entire context of what's under those blocks within it. It can be just enough to stir that memory. And sort of techniques that I've used that I'm still not convinced on are things like looking for themes in the fleeting notes. Sometimes my fleeting notes are conversations with myself. So at the end, I might come to a conclusion in there, and that might filter up. For the one I did yesterday, I really struggled with it, and my summary was like a paragraph of about 3 things because I couldn't really choose one over the others. But yeah, that's what kind of worked for me.
I think one thing also that I took away from the photo exercise, which maybe it was intentional, because there is no right or wrong answer, right? So it was kind of easy-ish to do. I mean, I didn't struggle too much to put that thumbnail because I'm like, yeah, this is what I think it is, and that's it. So
I also wanted to get to Justin, close your ears. The point of all that though too was like I wanted to get the frustration of not being able to complete it, and it's and really drive that home where it's like, no, but I have to get this done. You don't understand. And you want me to do all this work? Why is there 12 of them? Why don't you give me 3 of them? Okay, Justin, you're good. You're good. So we've got about 5 minutes here, and I guess I think I want to just thank everybody, and thank everybody because it's amazing to watch people like the lights turn on, and what we're going through now is permanent notes this week, relevant notes and index next week, and then output and workflow for the last week. But I think there's a part of me that's telling me that those 3 can get smashed together and because of everyone's like speed in which they're getting things, you know. And what I mean by that is the first hurdle is getting you into Rome and writing in Rome and seeing that aha moments. But now it's like, okay, I've got these aha moments. I get all that. Let's move into like doing it. And I feel like as long as people that are, you know, current can go back and help the people that are sort of catching up, and it allows for that opportunity, that gives me time just to focus on, okay, let's just get every technique, every thought, every question, every sort of in and out in permanent note, relevant note, and index, like as I can, you know. And I feel like we're probably going to switch gears in regards to how the videos are going to look. It's probably going to be less me talking to the video and more like, let me show you on the screen. Okay, this is how you're going to, you know, this is how you connect it here, and this is what it looks like, and then this is actually not how you're supposed to do it, and then, you know, all that. But I feel like that's how things are going to progress. But we'll see. I just feel like the speed in which people are grasping this is phenomenal, and I need to match that as well, if that makes sense. And I really got to that point when I was listening to you guys all sort of talk about this to everyone else in the group, and it was like, oh my, they got it. They got the hardest part, which is the writing aspect of it, and allowing the unconscious to sort of give us this insight. Now let's connect them, and so they're alive, and so yeah, I think that's how I want to end today. Is just like, okay, I'm proud of everyone's work that you've done up to this point. I'm proud of everyone that's catching up. And now it's like, oh, now let's put it into practice. Now we're not doing exercises in regards to like, oh, read this passage. No, we're going to read the book. We're going to make a fleeting note. We're going to make a literature note. We're going to make a permanent note. And we're going to add it to the Zettelkasten. Let's add it to the Zettelkasten. Let's add it to the Zettelkasten. Okay, well, let's add relevant notes now, you know? And I feel like if anyone feels like they're a little bit lost, I really hope today sort of put those stakes in the ground that it's not just me that has the answers. Everyone that answered today, like, look, listen back. Like, I think someone said like this was like super dense information. It's like, it is. But the answers are the box next to you, the square next to you, you know? And it's also the mirror looking back at you. And yeah. So that's where I'm at with it all. I'll have today's lesson up hopefully by midnight PST. And I'm excited to see this next part. This next, you know, this is the building now. Now it's like, oof, yeah.
So, Bo,
yes.
no more questions like day 16 about what makes us be an asshole.
Don't spoil it for Justin. Don't spoil it for Justin. By the way, yeah, that rocked my world, dude. Yeah, but you know, I think it's worth it though. I think there is importance in actually, you know, welcoming the author into our lives in order to extract the best out of them. And yeah, I think we're gonna end it there. And let's just give it a round of applause to everyone, because, you know, you all are what makes this possible. And we have 56 participants, and it's like every single one of us, you know, it's like those little puzzle pieces that come together, and it's not just one person, it's all of us. And it's all of us adding that thing in there. And I really hope, you know, I want even the quietest, you know, the lightest spoken people to also, you know, feel like they are part of this as well, because you are. It's like, I see you, you know, and it's like, you are. I read what you're writing. And so I'm going to go ahead and upload this. I'm going to, saving on my computer, but I'll upload this up to today's Daily Notes page. I feel like everyone's Twitter's on their profile. So, if you watch back and you ask more specific questions, you can reach out to people. And I think it's time to really rely on the community now, you know? So I can, you know, focus on delivering the videos, you know? Cool. Awesome. Anything else?
Thanks, Bo.
So much.
Pleasure. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
I feel like we need like a bigger like ending. Is there fireworks or something? Like, let me break something.
We need a dubstep outro.
Where's the soundtrack, Bo?
Listen, I'm so grateful for all of you, and I'm just, let's do this. Carol, I see you. Carol, I see you. Martha, I see you. Beverly, come on. Thank you so much, everyone. And
Great stuff.
Cheers. Yeah. Do you want me to close it down, or I'm gonna leave because I need to eat
You're gonna
something.
have to close it because we're not gonna leave.
Well, you can go to the lobby and bug Matt McKinley. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you next week. Okay. If you have any questions, reach out. If you have any questions, reach out. Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.